Hi guys, in this video we are going to be looking at Maze Creator and seeing all the features that it has. So to start off, let's go ahead and look. So I'm just in my sample project here, and I've added Maze Creator to my project, and let's go ahead and take a look at what files we have. So in the Blueprints folder of Maze Creator, we have the Maze Creator blueprint, and then this room properties struct, which is just used to condense a few variables. Then we also have this meshes folder that has a floor and a wall mesh. The floor mesh is of course used for the floor, and the wall mesh is used for all the wall segments in the maze. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can start using Maze Creator and see what it can do. So to start off, all we have to do is drag Maze Creator, this blueprint, into our level. Then let's just go ahead and customize some of the settings that we want. So look in the details panel after you've selected your Maze Creator, and you can see that we have all these settings. So I'm just going to run through these. Enabled, we do want that to be true. Generate in construction script, that's fine. Maze width, I'll just set that to 10. And maze height, I'll do 10 as well. Alright, so you can see it actually already generated a maze. Of course it's 10 by 10. 10 cells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10 high. So that's essentially the width and height. But you also have a couple other settings. So the other setting we see right now is wall height scale. That's essentially how tall the walls are, so if I set that to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, the walls just get taller and taller. I'll leave that at 1 for now. Then we have something like maze spacing. Maze spacing is essentially the space in between your wall meshes. Now, my wall meshes, the one that I provide to you by default, are 110 by 10 by 100. So this maze spacing actually works fine for the default meshes. Say you have, say you have a wall that's twice as long. I could set the maze spacing to 200. And then, they would just fill in the gaps because it would be a bigger mesh. Or if I just do something like 90, you can see the walls actually clip into each other because there's just less spacing in between them. So that's maze spacing for you. I'll just set that back to 100, and that should be fine. Next up, we've got maze collision. That's essentially, the collision on the maze. We can actually test that. So right now I have the collision enabled. If I right click and do play from here, you can see I can't fly through the maze, because it is, because there is collision on the maze. And then of course if I disable that and do the same thing, play from here, now I can actually fly through it, just because there's no collision that, blocks me. Alright, let's move on. So something that's really cool that you can play around with is custom seeds. So if you don't know what a seed is, if you've played Minecraft, I'm sure you do, but essentially what a seed is a seed is a way for you to get the same random thing, same random number, same random whatever, consistently. So say for example you and someone else have the same project, or say both of you have Maze Creator, and you're playing around generating mazes and you're like, wow, I really like this maze layout. I want my friend over here to have the same layout on their end. So even though this is completely random, you can actually use seeds to get the same random. So all you need to do is tell them all your settings and then tell them your seed. The seed essentially determines the random factor of this. So if I change the seed, actually I better use custom seed, and if I change this, that'll change what it looks like. Now that I'm using seed 6, if I regenerate, it actually regenerates the exact same maze because it's using the same seed, meaning it will be the same shape. And we'll have the same pattern. Now if I just disable use custom seed, it'll actually just generate a random seed. Right? If I do regenerate, pay attention to that seed, then it'll actually just randomize itself to give us a random maze. So that is seeds. Next up we've got the start and end points of the maze. So this is pretty I guess self-explanatory. So right now you can see that inside the maze, once you're in here, there's no way to get out because, you've got this border around the sides of the maze on the edges. But if I enable the generate start and end, that'll actually generate start and end points for me. So as you can see, right now they're right next to each other, which we obviously don't want. But so right now I've got a start and an end. So obviously since they're right next to each other, you probably don't want that. So let's look at what we can do for that. Actually, let's just regenerate. Yeah, so right now the reason that they're right next to each other is because of this setting. Start and end, max distance apart. So right now the farthest apart they can be is 1. If we set that to something like 5, then you can see they can actually be 5 units away from each other. Let's just regenerate that. Right now you can see they're 5 units away. If we set that to something like just, 99999, then they can be infinitely far away from each other. Right, there's nothing keeping them close to each other. We can just regenerate that a couple times to see. Right, you got it here and here. You got this here and here. Right, and so that's the max distance apart, but we also have another setting for the min distance apart that they have to be when randomly generating these start and ends. So we can take a look at that here. So right now it's at 0. Let's do something like 5. Actually, something I want to do is, so I'll do 5 for the min, and then I'll do 6 for the max. Okay, so now they have to be either 5 or 6 units apart. So if I just regenerate that, you can see it's about 6 units apart. Regenerate. Right, you can see that they're always next to each other. Within 5 or 6 units, of course, because of these two settings. Right, so that's essentially the start and end points. It's really just a gap in the wall. Actually, something really cool that I have set up is I've actually got collision boxes. You can't see them right now. There's actually collision boxes right here. Let's see, just right here on the start, and then on the end. I've got these collision boxes here, and there's actually an event that fires off when the player collides. So, of course, depending on your project, depending on what you want, an example of what you could do is when the player collides with the start, it runs a timer, and then fires off a timer, and the timer counts up. And then once they hit the end, it ends the timer, and then the player can see how long it took them to complete the maze. Just a small example of what you can do. But just know that that is a thing. There are events that fire off. There are event dispatchers that you can bind stuff to. So yeah, so that is when the start and end are randomly generated, but you can actually control the locations of the start and end. The start and end. So to do that, all we have to do is check this custom start end checkbox. And then we just need to specify here we have the maze start index and the maze end index. So essentially what the indexes are, let me just quickly show you. So if I set the start to index 0, you can see the start is right here. Okay, so the indexes essentially count up around the thing. So it's index 0 here, index 1, index 2, index 3, all the way around till it gets to here, which I believe is index 39. So as you can see, if I change the start index to 1, it moved down here. Same with end index, I can do the same thing. I can do that to move that to like 3. Alright, now here you've got your start, and here you've got your end. Alright, so that's essentially the start and end. Now let's move on to another really cool feature we can take a look at that I should actually probably bump up the maze size to show you this. Let's see, I'll do 40 by 40. Alright, so you can see we've got this fairly large maze, and you can see it is completely random, of course. But something I wanted to show you was rooms. So the next option we have is generate rooms, which is a Boolean. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that does. So if we check that box, you can see if we kind of zoom out here, you can see it looks a little bit different than before. So it looks a little bit different in the sense that, let's zoom into it. So right here, right here, right here, and right here, we've got kind of these open areas where there isn't necessarily a wall there. Just kind of these open, open areas. So what those are is, those are rooms, which were generated by me checking that box. I can actually regenerate this to see what other kind of rooms we can get. Right, so you've got a bunch of different shapes, but essentially what it is it will randomly generate these. It will randomly just not place walls in these areas to form sort of these room-like areas. And we can actually change some of the settings for rooms in this room properties struct that I mentioned earlier right here. So we can change the minimum room size on the x-axis, minimum room size on the y-axis, and then the max sizes. Then the room frequency, which is just how often rooms are generated. Okay, so let's go ahead and play around with some of these settings. So I'll change the max size to 10. Max size to 10 here. I'll do 5 and 5. Alright, so now you can see these rooms, of course, are quite a bit bigger. Right now we've got rooms ranging from 5 by 5 to 10 by 10. And, these are essentially what rooms are. Whether or not you want, this feature is included, whether or not you want rooms. If you don't, you can just not enable them. But if you do want something like this, the option is there. All you have to do is check this little box and, you've got rooms. So that's essentially rooms for you. Moving on, we've got a couple of things we can do with the meshes and the materials. So, as you can see, I'm actually using so right now I'm using just a concrete material for the walls, and then, just another concrete material for the floor, which by default, there actually isn't any materials on these. So, by default, your meshes should be blank, like this. But what you can actually do to set up your materials, which is really nice because you can have a different material on every maze, is if you come down to the details panel when I'm on my maze, you can see we can customize the floor mesh and wall mesh, which I won't because, it works fine with these meshes. But you can set up the wall material elements and the floor material elements. So the floor and wall only have one element. So let's go ahead and add one. And let's take a look. So, wall material. For my wall, I will just use this pink material. And for my floor, I can just add one of those, and I'll use a blue material, right? Now you can see I just changed the materials that are used by these. Now it looks completely different. Or if I wanted to, for my floor, I could do something like my moss path, and then for my walls, I could do just my brick material that I have set up. And this is actually what I used in a couple screenshots, I believe. But yeah, so that's how you can easily change out your materials, or if you want to, you can actually change out your meshes, which you might need to change the maze spacing, if your mesh is a different size. Like if your mesh is 200 by whatever, then, that option's there. But I actually do have a couple features that I'm looking into. This maze creator actually isn't on the marketplace at the time of this video, so there may or may not be more features. Some features I was looking at, which are pretty good ideas, which I believe it was suggested by TechLord on the forums. But one of those features is maze symmetry. So let's say you have a team-based game and you want both sides of the maze to be split down the middle. Say you want them to be the exact same on both sides. That's something I'm looking into. I'll have to, see how well that works, see, if it's a feature people want. If so, I'll go ahead and throw that in for you, which, you'll be able to customize that, of course. Something else was actually generating maze on the z-axis. So right now this is a two-dimensional maze. As you can see, we have, it goes on the x and y axes, but what someone suggested was I have it generate on the z-axis as well, which, if I can hurry and bring it up, it's actually a web page showing what that would look like. So they posted it somewhere right here. Yeah, so what I mean by that is, so not only having the maze go on the x and y, but also on the z going up, which, is perfectly possible. And that's something I'm looking into. My only concern is performance, which, if you add a whole nother thing, that's, your performance exponentially goes down. So that was just one of my concerns, but I am keeping an open mind. I am looking into it, as well as a few other things. I'm also open to suggestions. I'm making this for the community. I want to know what the community wants so that I can, make the best thing possible. And yeah, so, this is Maze Creator creates completely random mazes. It's very simple to, very simple to use. Really, all you have to do is customize some of these settings, and get it how you want it to be. As you can see, completely random, nothing's predetermined, and you can kind of see that there's only two meshes. There's a floor mesh, which there's one of those, and then you've got these wall meshes, which there's a ton of them. So, nothing's predetermined, it's just completely random, and you've got all these settings you can customize. Yeah, that will be it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and have a nice day.